see a few other things that are mentioned. Then we asked people, sort of summarize, what do you think is the main purpose of this budget, the first budget under the Ruto administration? And we read out 4 choices: to raise revenue, reduce the debt, pay for government operations, increase development, improve services, reduce the gap between rich and poor, or reduce dependence on donors for future expenditure. We read those out to people. But some people said, hakuna hata. The real purpose is kuwezesha au kuongeza ufisadi au kupora mali ya serikali au kuiba. We didn't read that out. That came from people without mention. And you can see almost 3 times as many opposition supporters mentioned corruption as the real purpose of the budget than people who support the government, only 8%. But even some people who support the government view that as the real purpose. It was a single response. You could only pick one. 16% weren't sure and 6% didn't answer the question. They kept quiet, no response. Again, you can see that people who are pro-government are more willing to give government the benefit of the doubt as to what the purpose of the budget is. Slightly more to raise revenue to pay for government operations, twice as many to promote development and improve services, about the same on reducing the gap between rich and poor, not much, and a little more, 11 versus 7%, on reducing reliance on donors. But the main contrast, I think, is in this one: increased development. Even 9% of opposition supporters are willing to give the government the benefit of the doubt on that. Which again, I think shows that even if people, in answering a question about a political party or coalition, are very clear where they support, many people are about open-minded, especially when a government is only, or not even 1 year old, and they're waiting to see what it can actually deliver. So we thought that was an interesting question to ask. And then finally, we get to this issue of the housing levy. We had a number of questions. We're giving you the results of 3 of them today. Do people expect to have to pay this? Do they expect that those who pay, whoever pays, will actually get a house? And overall, do they think it's a good idea? Do they support the program? And when we correlate this with income group, again, you can see that people who are earning nothing are rather less expecting to have to pay anything than those who are earning more. I was very surprised that even those who say they're earning nothing, a quarter of them, 25%, say that sooner or later they expect to be paying the levy. I'm not sure how. Maybe they don't understand that it's only for formally employed people, like I guess most of you. And then, of course, your employer will be contributing the 1.5%. Now, why is it that only a slight majority, 59% of people earning over $50,000 expect to pay? Many of the people in our sample, as you saw earlier, who are earning that much are self-employed. So they're not subject to this tax for the housing fund. Only people in formal employment, as far as I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you do see the more people are earning, the more likely they think they are. Of course, it would be very good in 6 months, we do a survey and we ask, are you contributing to it? People will have an experience. Assuming that Senator Omtata's legal case fails and the program is implemented. It might not be. I don't know when the court's going to give its judgment. Then the next question we asked, do you expect to pay? Sorry, it's the same one, but we analyzed the data again by political orientation. And we see people who support the government have a slightly higher level of expectation of having to contribute, as opposed to people who support the opposition. Now, I don't think this is because what kind of employment they have. I think it's people who support the government are just more positive about any program that the government has developed. Whether people who support the opposite, because we didn't ask them who are not expecting to pay, why not? We didn't ask that question. You know, in any survey, you can only interview people for 30 or 40 minutes. Otherwise, they'll fall asleep or they'll hang up or they'll tell you cuenta zaco. They want to go and milk their cows or whatever they need to do. So you can't ask every question you might think of. Whether some of the opposition people think that mano mano or some other forms of protest will actually kill that program and make the government withdraw it, I don't know. But even, as I say, about half of them are expecting to pay. Again, we think this is a very good benchmark, baseline, and we'll check in a few months if the program is actually unblocked by the judiciary. Then we asked, sio mwewe mwenyewe, lakini hawa watu ambao watakuwa na toa pesa to the housing program, do you think they'll ever get a house? Overall, only 11% think that people who contribute to the housing levy will get a house. Now, it's very interesting. There's been some, and among pro-government people, about twice as many, 20% think that those who contribute will get a house. Only 1/5 of opposition supporters. So you can see the political orientation here, where opposition supporters are much less optimistic that people who contribute will get a house. Now, as I was saying, there's been a kind of a change, if I understand, in the messaging from the government about the relationship between contributing and getting the house. When it was first proposed in the finance bill, before the parliamentary committee went to Naivasha, I recall people on behalf of the government saying that people will contribute, they can get a house, but if they don't want one, after 7 years, they can take the money out that was contributed by them and their employer. But people who are contributing were definitely going to be able, after a certain number of years, to get a house. After the committee came back from Naivasha, and there were discussions in Parliament, more recently the message has changed, and even from the President, where he said, everybody is contributing so that people who don't have a house or don't want a house, who can't afford a house on the private market, will be able to get one. It should be a form of patriotic donation, in a way. Just like taxes are. We pay taxes, we get services, but people who are earning a lot of money and don't use government medical services or send their kids to universities overseas and pay for all of that, they're still contributing to public education. And that's a form of citizenship. You can call it patriotism. So the messaging from government has shifted a bit about the underlying justification or purpose for this program. So it's not surprising to me that there's a bit of clarity. We didn't ask people, and you yourself, are you expecting to get a house? Because we thought that's too early, before people have even started to contribute. Nevertheless, for every group, total as well as political alignment, it's only government supporters where we don't have a majority, a clear majority, who say they definitely will not get a house even if they're contributing to it. And with opposition people, more than 2/3, 70%, saying, hata wakitoa pesa kiasi gani, hawatapata nyumba kamwe. They just won't ever get one. But quite a few are not sure about this. Again, we can do this survey maybe after 20 or 30 years and see who actually got a house. Although some of us may not be here in 20 or 30 years. Then overall, what's the level of support for the housing levy among Kenyans? 2/3 support it, 69%. Sorry, a quarter. Only a quarter support it. 2/3 oppose it. Beg my pardon. Even among people who are pro-government, more people oppose the program than support it. Only 40% say they do, 54% say they're against it. In the opposition, however, 84% oppose, as opposed to just 11% who say they support it. So this is probably the most, you're coming from where? A bit late, sorry you didn't come earlier. What would have to happen in order for the public's level of support for this program to increase, whatever their political alignment? If I were writing a story about this results, that's the question I would ask in my story. What would have to happen?